So the apparent reality is the dualistic appearance of the world. In non-duality, the object appears in the subject. In other words, the object we consider to be an appearance that is arising, existing, appearing inside the sphere of consciousness, not external to it. In other words, there's no observer and object separation. They're made out of the same stuff, same awareness. If I'm observing this glass of water sitting on the desk, it's arising in my awareness. And then if I look at who's the observer, it appears that this body is my observer or is acting as the observer. And instead of thinking, the object is separate from me, from this body and the brain and the senses, I perceive it to be equal. Both my body, my brain, my senses, and the glass, everything is appearing within a field, one field of consciousness. And that field cannot be split. There's no splitting, there's no edges to it. There's no pre and post. It's always existed and always is. And then this body and the glass appear within it. So now what that means, it's kind of what
What does
people...
that mean, Dr. Rob?
Yeah, it's what people mean as by oneness. That everything is oneness. Well, that's technically what we're saying. Well, or what somebody's saying when they say everything is one, that there is no separation between the object and the subject. Now, what this implies is that there's an observer that is able to observe both me, my body, as the subject, as well as the object at once.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's almost like there's a bigger awareness, independent of my brain. And this is what the Upanishads point to, that the true awareness, the true consciousness, pure consciousness is beyond the mind. It's beyond your human mind. The senses are part of the mind, of course. And so the brain is creating or creates these senses that is able to detect the glass, the colors, the sound, etc. But that awareness, pure consciousness, is able to observe the brain and the mind doing that work of perception, but it's separate from it. It's independent.
So let's go down to brass tacks.
Right.
If we are going to, that's a huge concept. And I remember when you first told me that cup is yours. I'm like, what am I going to do with that? Right. So it's a good concept. It's an understanding. It's a new paradigm to think. Now let's go down to a very practical problem. This person wants to double their income. So how does non-dualistic philosophy help them get there faster without, compared to dualistic philosophy? So in dualistic philosophy, I would say, oh, the money's separate from me. I got to work hard. I got to find the right strategy. I got to get the right coach who can give me the right answers so I can get the things I want. I have to change my thinking. I have to put a vision board up, and I have to work on my childhood stuff so I can, fix whatever it is. And then hopefully I can, be more confident and go out there and deserve that money and all those things.
Yeah.
Non-dual philosophy would be change everything, because now we're assuming that the result that we want is in our control. That we can try to work hard, we could try to get the right strategy, but we don't know if it's going to work or not. And there's still this kind of uncertainty and this thing that what I want, my desire, is separate from me. So the subject is separate from the object. And so what if we assume that money that we want and we have the ability, it's already in us, like the capacity to have that experience?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because let's say money in this scenario is the object.
Mm-hmm.
It's the object. So where does the object arise? In the subject, meaning in your mind. What that implies then is that the appearance of money, the way it appears to you, and the meaning it has for you is totally up to your mind, the way you're conceiving of it, the way you're perceiving it, what you're making of it. So that we know this to be true. I mean, we can kind of do a mental experiment. If you give somebody $100 and another person the same, or another $100, for one person it might be very little, right? If the person is a millionaire or a billionaire, $100 is nothing to them. It's like, what is that, like a tip or something? To another person who might be homeless or hungry,
Could be like a
$100.
week's worth of food, right?
Yes. And so we see that these objects that we call our world are very subjective. In other words, they're only meaningful and they represent particular things from the subjective perspective of the individual. That it depends on the context, on the situation, on the person. The meaning is not inherent in the object. It's inherent in the mental structure. So
It doesn't have an independent meaning, like in the Buddhists, they say
yeah,
things out there don't have an independent arising. They're all arising from inside of you, the mind.
they're all connected to this consciousness. So what it means is, say I'm coaching an entrepreneur on how to increase their profit or their business strategy. The work is about changing the internal structure of the meaning they're experiencing, instead of just simply taking action to get objects that appear to be external to them. The work is, let's work with the internal mindset, understanding that they are not dual, that whatever has arisen in their mind, whether it be a sense of lack, a sense of wealth, a sense of back and forth, there's ups and downs in business, that kind of stuff. The question would be, what is your mind making of this situation? What meaning is it ascribing to these apparently external objects that are really internal? The object is arising in the subject, in the mind of the individual entrepreneur.